right, y'all. Welcome back to Boss Mentality. On today's episode, we're going to talk about unrequited friendships in the workplace. Okay, so that's a big, major topic, JL. We're going to really discuss Issa Rae and also Amanda Seales' relationship when they were on, of course, the television show Insecure, and how unrequited friendships can affect you and your reputation. How it could be very misleading when it comes down to really seeing how the other colleague may interpret the relationship. They may feel that they're all invested, and the other person may say, hey, you know what? This is what it is. And we're going to talk about how to be upfront with proper communication, especially when someone doesn't really quite get it. They're coming in thinking that, they're invited to the cookout, and they're not really invited to the cookout. They're just at work. And that's how it should remain. So we're going to get started with that and just go into a little bit more detail on the Issa Rae, Amanda Seales relationship from Insecure.
Yeah, this is an interesting topic because I think that a lot of us can relate to having or working around people that are, maybe around our age, or, maybe have some things in common at first. And then we kind of find out that they're not really that type of person that we just want to hang out with outside of work, even though they feel differently. And so it's like, you want to have camaraderie with the people that you work with, but you also, it's okay to set a boundary if that's not the type of person that you like to be around. And then with this particular situation that we're talking about with Issa Rae and Amanda Seales, of course, they were on the hit TV show Insecure.
I just want to be more confident, bravely. I want to be that person.
I love these Sundays.
I have a problem.
Converse.
I have a problem.
I love how you just don't even care.
Very popular show on HBO. And, they were essentially, in a friend group in the show. So in the show, they were a part of this friend group. And then that also kind of permeated to real life. A lot of the cast members were, hanging out with each other. They had a lot of things in common. So they were also being friendly on the show and off the show as well. Issa Rae, she hires people that she knows a lot of the times, especially when she first started. A lot of the shows that she had started from her YouTube shows, like Awkward Black Girl, stuff like that. She was producing a lot of different shows on YouTube. And so she was using people that she already knew.
Exactly. And I think really looking at that interaction, I think Issa Rae saw it on a business perspective. She saw Amanda's talent, but it was like, I think with her personality, it was like, okay, you know what, let's stick to the business. But the thing about it is there was no communication to state that. And right. Looking at Amanda Seales, personality, she has a personality where it's like she likes affirmation. You can sort of see that. She, even like I said, when she said that with Shannon Sharp, hey, everybody likes me. I'm a likable person.
What'd you do to get kicked out of the Emmys party? Damn, we can't take you nowhere. What'd you do?
I go to a lot of places because I'm lovable and people like me and I'm delightful. I am delightful.
Right. But when you have that type of perspective, or when you've been raised in that golden child mentality, you can sort of not know how to read the room, because you go in thinking that if you're the golden child in every environment, people are going to be receptive towards you in that environment. And that's not the case. And, with Issa Rae seeing Amanda's talent, saying, okay, you know what? I see what you can do. I see what you can bring to the table. She saw it from that level. And I think, especially in our community, we have to keep in mind that just because someone sees your talent, that's what that means. It's your talent. Okay, it doesn't mean that, okay, they want to break bread. Doesn't mean that they want to, extend other olive branches. Now, if something develops in time, that's fantastic. But it's sort of difficult when you have that golden child mentality, okay, that someone's raised like that. They have a hard time really looking at that relationship. It can get into a very much so a anxious attachment in the situation. And I think that's what Amanda was struggling with here, not trying to diagnose anyone, just saying just from the interactions and also from, her social media presence, we could just sort of see that from Issa's sort of like the avoidant, like, okay, let's just keep this sort of like on this type of playing field here. She read that like, okay, let me go on to prove it myself.
Right. And I think that she kind of, like you said, she has this personality where she feels like, because she feels like she's well liked.
Delusional.
She feels like, she can connect with different people, and she may can do that. I mean, she may have that ability, but that does not mean that you have that ability with everybody. And so you can't force feed that situation. Amanda Seales, she's been in the business for a while. She's been, she kind of grew up in the industry. And so I'm not saying that she had yes men around her growing up. I can't call that. But it does seem like with her personality in particular, I think that she kind of just wants everybody to listen to her and get along with her. And she wants to be involved with everything, even if it's not necessarily, even if her personality doesn't necessarily fit the mold of every friend group, essentially. Amanda Seales in particular, she kind of had this thing where it's like she didn't really realize that her and Issa, although they are age mates, they are peers in age, Issa was technically her boss. And so, I think when you get too comfortable, and it may be difficult, I'm not an actor, so I can't, say how it is, playing friends on the show and then also being friends outside of the show. It could be different. It could blur the lines a little bit. I'm not saying that that's what happened in this relationship and their friendship, but it seems like it's possible that blurred the lines a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that there was some boundaries that Issa made that she couldn't fully grasp and understand why those boundaries were made.
I think for her case as well, it's funny because going back, it's funny when you said that they're peers. On the interview, she stated, I think it was correlated with her channel, that she was her elder. Okay, so
that's what Amanda said.
That's what Amanda said.
I'm your employee. That's number one. You're sunning me for what? Like, it's not that I did anything wrong. It's not like you're correcting me in the work. 2, I am your peer, colleague. And 3, I'm your elder. Boom, boom, boom. So that was the last day. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to keep putting up with this behavior. I'm not going to keep interacting with this. I'm not going to keep kowtowing. I'm not going to keep being the bigger person who comes and tries to soothe and smooth because you're the boss. I'm not going to do it. So that was the last day. So for anyone who's ever wanted to know, you just got a random tea. That was the last day.
And so, Shannon Sharp, that interview was very tame.
Yeah.
It was before that when she was discussing on her own channel, it got a little bit rough, more like a rough copy of how her true feelings were. So on that interview, she was like, well, I'm her elder, and having that, I think they're only like a couple of years apart, maybe, I want to say maybe 3, maybe 4 possibility. So it's like seeing that perspective, like you said, it's like if you're coming in there, it's one thing, thinking that, okay, this person is in my peer group and, having that type of mindset, but having that ego factor where it's like you should be put on that golden pedestal or should receive this type of, energy that should be beyond what the other staff man is giving.
Because she's the elder and because she's been in the entertainment industry and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
People can pick that up. People can pick up that negative type of energy. And I think, just in so many different ways, it's important to, establish correct boundaries in the beginning. And I think that, with Issa Rae, with her sort of looking at it from a level, playing field here as far as with her staff, she was like, okay, let me just try to be cordial here. And I think with certain like highly demanding personalities, you got to lay it out really quickly. And I think with coming from an avoidant type of lens, when it comes down to connections or how you interact, you like your personal space and your personal boundaries, and you can be overwhelmed by anxious attachments, forming in your workplace, you can kind of shut down. But with those anxious attachments, with those people, you have to really let them know, hey, this is where we are right here. I know one time she mentioned on Shannon Sharp during that interview, hey, I invited them to, my house and I invited them to do a girls trip.
And let me tell you, from the beginning, I've been trying with these ladies because I want to make community everywhere I go. I done invited them to my house. They didn't come. I brought them gifts. They said thanks. I tried to plan a retreat. They said we don't want to go. I created our group chat for the show. I created game nights for the show.
Nobody participated.
I mean, eventually, but
reluctantly.
It should have been a thing where it's like, I admire your work, but this is where this is. I don't want to go further than our professional dynamics. And really, that helps sort of protect the vibe of your work world. because when you have other people that's around, they're going to pick up on the energy and they're going to try to say pick sides in the situation. And one person's going to feel isolated. It creates a mess. And, and that's one thing I think really it speaks in our community, that you don't have to invite everybody to the cookout just because, we skin folk, but that don't mean we kinfolk.
Exactly.
We can have a good positive rapport, but that doesn't mean that, I have to put you in a place or a role where I don't want you to put, yourself in,
Right. And I think that, she kind of may have gotten a little emotionally invested in the situation. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with her saying, okay, hey, let's hang out, let's do this, let's do that. That's fine. But I think Issa may have already known that she wasn't the personality type for her to hang out with outside of the set, outside of work. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, she should have set that clear boundary beforehand. But because Issa is an avoidant type, she's going to avoid confrontation. Mm-hmm. And her saying that may have been, it may have been confrontational, or she may have taken it as, a certain way with Amanda Seales' personality type. So I think that's probably why she didn't at first, but then it ended up blowing up in her face anyway, because now we have a situation where, they had like this big, blow up, and, now they're kind of like, they beefing, they not beefing, but they kind of at odds. They don't see eye to eye. And
everybody's in their business, and it didn't have to be that way.
Exactly.
And that's what happens when you have avoidant types. Sometimes you have to step out of that comfort zone because you're gonna have some confrontation every now and then. That's just a part of business. That's just a part of life. It's the best to have that tough conversation in the beginning, then turn around and having playing damage control when everybody and their mama is in your business. If you got someone who is, they were trying to find that validation. They didn't find that validation. So now they're talking about it to everybody in the world, where it could have been like, this is where this is. This person knows how this is. So they could go into the environment and they don't feel like they have to prove themselves on this lens. It's like, hey, I'm doing my job,
Exactly. I mean, I think that, again, like you said, her having that personality type, it's detrimental when you're in a leadership role that she's in. If you don't, sometimes you have to take that and say, you know what? Yeah, this is not going to work. Because you can create anxiety in the workplace. You can create kind of a weird energy in the workplace because of it. And we kind of, based off of how Amanda Seales, have we seen her act, we kind of know that she likes to be, I won't say confrontational.
I mean, you and Jeannie have butted heads in a couple of different topics.
Have we?
That just kind of goes.
Stop. No, because you know what? We're not.
It comes to territory, though, right?
No, that's not the territory we're coming from.
Yeah.
We're not butting heads, and I think it's very, very important, especially at a table of diverse women, to very clearly delineate the difference between having a difference in opinion than butting heads. You'll know when I'm butting heads.
Yeah.
Because when I butt heads, there's only going to be one head standing, and as you can see, we're still here.
She's a very vocal person, and so some things like that you have to nip in the bud before it gets out of hand. And so you have to kind of, like, as a leader, you kind of have to have structure. You have to, your workplace has to be structured in a certain way where you let your employees know, hey, we're cool. We can, we can be cordial. We can do this, we can do that. But that does not necessarily mean that we have to hang out outside of work. If I don't invite you to somebody's party, that does not mean we have an issue.
Yeah. That
just means that everything isn't for, outside the workplace.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly. And that goes back to it, when you go into your business perspective, we're going to talk about her publicist, Vanessa. I believe that she was brought into the conversation.
Okay, you take the call. Hello?
Hi, Amanda. This is Vanessa. I just want you to know that, so none of this has anything to do with Issa. That's the first thing she says. None of this has anything to do with Issa. So I just want you to know that, but I do want you to understand that it was me who kicked you out the party. Okay. So, I just want you to know that the reason I kicked you out the party is because I don't like you. Okay. Well, that's all I need to know. There's nothing else for us to talk about. And I hang up. She calls me back immediately. Why'd you hang up? I said, because there's nothing else for us to talk about. She says, don't you want to know why I don't like you?
No, not actually. Actually, I don't.
No, I don't, because it's none of my business. I've never done anything to you. And for you to put me in harm's way off of literally nothing means that I don't need to talk to you about why you don't like me. You need to talk to your therapist about why you don't like me. And I hung up the phone.
She called back?
No, she called around. She starts a smear campaign.
Oh.
And that's what happens when you don't address things. People feel like they have to take up the mantle. You know, to be more blunt, to be more like, you know, let me show you how
it should be done, how you should have did it.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it goes to like, you know, let me protect my homegirl because like this is my, you know, this is my friend, but this like, you know, we work together, but this is my friend also, and I'm gonna tell you about yourself. And
Right.
that creates that flying monkey perspective, you know, unbeknownst to, you know, the avoidant personality. They can bring in a lot of people that play, you know, devil's advocate or like, you know, getting into the midst of the confrontation where it should just be brought like, hey, you know what? This is between me and Amanda, you know, not relying on their ear to sort of dissect the situation, you know, having boundaries with communication, even on those friend groups that you are close with at work, who you do have more rapport with, because they may not have the emotional maturity to say, you know what, that's between Issa and that's between Amanda. Those
Right.
two, I'm not in this emotionally. Let me work with this person here. Let me work with this person there. Not everybody has that emotional maturity to say,
Right.
let me separate myself from it. That's what transpired with the Vanessa situation. We saw that a lot, you know, with her kind of having this, you know, this disagreement or this beef with, you know, Amanda, you know, based on personalities and differences. I believe that she went to the Black Emmys party one year. It was like they had not even like a rip, but they just probably didn't have like a good vibe, you know, right then and there. And I think, you know, looking at the perspective, you know, Amanda went to Issa and addressed it, and she was like, well, that's between you guys. But, you know, when someone brings that to your attention,
another avoidant,
you can't do it.
It's personality.
You can't avoid it. You gotta pull both sides and say, you know what, Amanda, we're not gonna go into that. We're working together, and then you pull Vanessa aside and say, Vanessa, hey, whatever tension that you guys may have, we got to work together in a business type of perspective and get our emotions out of this. You know, we're gonna have respect for one another. You guys don't have to like each other, but guess what? Let's have a rapport while we're doing this show. While we're doing this show, we're not gonna have that beef. We're not gonna have this like energy. If y'all feel some type of way, hey, step away from each other and just go about that. But we're gonna come in there with some form of unity, because at least both parties can look at you and say, hey, you know what? They weren't taking sides, okay? And they checked this behavior from the get-go, you know?
Right.
Because when you wait later, all it is, or when you sort of have your hands off, you're telling your staff members who have an issue, or you're telling your staff members who are like, you know, not partial, they're just trying to be sort of hands off, that they could go into disrespect mode.
Exactly. And I think if she would have nipped that in the bud earlier, it wouldn't have been this big blow up. You know, when you show people that you're not as confrontational, you know, some people will be like, well, she ain't do it right. This is how she should, like you said, how the publicist did. She should have just did it like this. And so now, instead of you're not taking the reins, you're the leader, but you're not taking the reins. So you have somebody who's not the leader trying to take the reins overstepping their boundaries.
Yes.
Now they're overstepping their boundaries because you didn't set your boundary as a leader. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, you don't want to play or show favoritism to anybody. You know what I'm saying? So you want to avoid doing that, but you still have to set that boundary. And so I'm not gonna put this all on Amanda Seals. Issa she played a part in it too. If she would have nipped it in the bud and handled it earlier, they wouldn't have been in that, you know, situation. It would not have made it past the set. I can't guarantee it because, again, we know how Amanda Seals' personality.
Yeah.
And I'm sure something would have came up, but I don't know if she would have blown it out of proportion the way that she did.
It wouldn't have gone into that bigger playing field. It would have been probably maybe lightly addressed, because when you're dealing with somebody who wants to have outside validation, they're going to talk about it. But at least they can say, hey, well, this is what I walked into, you know, because when you got somebody, you know, I'm going by the old terms, in the mouth of the South, okay?
Right.
You got to sort of like put your checks and balances in place, because they had that ability to talk, okay? And when you know you're dealing with that, you know, highly, you know, stir the pot type of personality, you got to say, hey, let me sort of go into checking mode real quick, because when you don't, it comes into like, let me pull everybody's side because, it goes into the mindset. I'm a good person, so I'm going to find some type of validation in the room, whether it's social media, whether it's outside sources. They're going to go into, hate to call it a spade, but to victim mentality where it's like they want to get their affirmation and their pat on the back.
Yeah, I think she used her social media presence to try to sway the audience, but it didn't really work because people already kind of had a notion about how she operates. We've heard of her before. Obviously, she's a very intelligent woman. She's very vocal, and I like that about her when it comes to certain topics. She's very she does her research. She's very smart, and she's not afraid to speak her mind. And that's not a problem. But I think she tried to use social media to almost like kind of turn against Issa a little bit. Yeah, because it was just kind of like, oh well, y'all think Issa is all this, all that. Well, let me tell you what happened between me and her. Y'all don't know about this, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like she was trying to sway it, but it didn't work in her favor, obviously, because Issa is not known to be confrontational. She gave y'all a job for how many years on HBO? You know what I'm saying? And that was a very popular show. And so people weren't just going to be like, ooh, Issa did this, bump her. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't going to be that. We needed to hear both sides. Now that we've heard both sides, we can say that Issa should have, taken accountability, stepped up a little bit with her role as a leader, and nipped things in the bud. But we're not just going to be like, it's all her fault. Because Amanda, come on now, we know how you are.
Amanda did have some form of workplace envy in the situation. Like, when you go into situations and you're like, hey, I'm their elder. I'm talking these way, like this is, I'm your elder. You should respect me. All that type of
I've been in the game.
So it translates into that bigger, problematic issue. And they are assessing with you. They're like, well, you know what? You're going to feed into me, feed into my energy. And once they don't get that narrative and once they don't get that interaction, it changes into that, envious perspective where they can get very destructive. How that could be, on platforms, trying to pull someone's ear. And I believe that a lot of people saw through a lot of that, the jealousy, a lot of the mess. And that's something that, we can look at from a bigger picture and say, thankfully not prone to just jump on board, taking one side over the other. But like, you have to look at the type of dynamic that's coming into your environment to say, hey, you know what, this person, when things don't sort of go their way, they could get kind of envious, they could get kind of like destructive. And I really believe that this was like a learning lesson from, Issa Rae with how to sort of deal with that type of personality type and how to sort of like, have her team not really jump into the loop of, her personal issues or her personal battles.
Yeah, I agree. I've been in situations at jobs where it's like, you kind of deal with the green eye envy. You kind of deal with somebody who is, they may be older or more experienced, but you coming in kind of knocking doors down and doing your thing. And, they may feel some type of way about how you're moving, how people are reacting to you, your work ethic, your work product, your experience, your education, things like that. That may have them feeling insecure, and then they may try to turn people against you in the workplace. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with how you work. It has everything to do with their ego, and how they want to be perceived. When you have personality types like that, you got people that they just want to be liked by everybody. And if you're not necessarily, and you may just be indifferent, you may not dislike them, you just may be indifferent to them, but they're going to take that as you don't like them. Mm-hmm. Because you don't personally want to hang with them and do stuff like that. So they'll take that, and it really turns into high school almost. It's like they'll take that and they'll turn it into a whole big thing. It has nothing to do with how you work and everything to do with them as a person and their ego, and how when you have people that have not been checked in a certain way like that, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people would just have not been checked. Listen, like, everybody does not have to like you, and that's okay. Or, you know, they don't have to be your best friend. They don't even, it doesn't even have to do with like or dislike. They could just be indifferent to you. And that's okay too. Y'all don't have to hang out and all that stuff. You have your people and you have to use your own discernment of who you can hang out with and be cool with outside of work. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's not like that. And if you notice somebody has a personality type that's not going to mesh with yours, y'all can be cool. Y'all may work good together. Leave it at that.
Because sometimes you want to do the Malaysia, hello, and keep it moving.
Right. I did it. What she said? She said, "Oh, quick little hello to everybody."
I don't understand why it's always this two you have all the time.
You know what? It's not. It wasn't a two. What it was a general hello.
Sit down somewhere. You ain't trying to go into no detail, like give me a hug, all of that. It's like hello. That's it.
Right.
That's all
Hey to everybody. I'm speaking.
I'm speaking. You know, like it don't got to be all the extra stuff. You know, and that's something that the anxious attachment energy could take in consideration. You know, when you're working with people, when you're working with different people who have, you know, a reserved type of energy, that's not rejection for you. This is not your personal relationship. Right. It's a different way of communicating when you're dealing with a personal relationship, when you're trying to have a romantic interest. When you're dealing with your coworker, your boss, that's not your personal romantic interest. This is just your coworker that you're trying to just have a rapport with, that's cordial, casual, and light. Okay, that doesn't mean it's gonna get heavy. They ain't trying to go somewhere and braid your hair, or give you a lineup, whatever you got,
or go on a girls trip.
Oh yeah,
the Essence Festival.
It's like I just want to say,
whatever you feel like you.
Issa said, read these lines, and that's all. Right. Just read the lines.
Right.
And go back to the trailer. Okay. Right. And just and come back when we're ready to read them again. That's all I'm trying to do. And that's understandable. And I think when you take your emotions out of it and look at it from a logical lens, that can help a lot when it comes down to just really knowing your place with people and their energy in their space. And also, and looking at it from the avoidant side, also looking at the emotional interpretation that someone is coming towards you with, and having an understanding to say, okay, let me give this person clarity. I'm going to give this person clarity, but we're not going to harp on this long, but I'm going to see their emotional response in this. And I'm going to make sure that they have a straightforward communication as far as how I'm thinking. And once that's addressed, that's all you can do. That's all you can do.
That's it. I mean, you really can't do anything more. If they go further with it, then you have to handle that accordingly. But if you don't say anything at all, if you never establish a boundary, you can't really be surprised if they overstep it.
I'll say this one last point before closing, JL. This happened sort of like I'll say a couple of months ago when they asked Issa Rae how she felt as far as working with different people. Is there anybody that she would not want to work with? And she kind of alluded towards, someone went on a podcast and talking ish about me. I don't want to work with them. I'm not trying to work with them. But
you can't blame her.
You can't blame her. And that's the thing though, with the anxious avoidant energy, you can burn a lot of bridges because it's already hard in Hollywood environments. And even like I said, if you're coming from regular work environments, it's hard to form those networks and you burning them across every bridge based on your emotional injury that's not even supposed to be in the room at all, period. It's like, okay, if you're trying to form, collaboration successfully, some collaborations are very, just, hey, I see you, we're good, keep it moving.
We see each other.
That's it. And that's something you have to be careful with, because when you go into these public spaces, or if you're talking with other outside people, you're looking at a traditional work type of lens, and you're going into different type of energies or different type of spaces where you're talking about people and it's getting back to sender. Guess what? It's going to form a lot of apprehension with forming those work bridges. There's a lot of opportunities that got taken away from Amanda Seales when she started talking on these podcasts, going on these platforms, but that could be the downside of, trying to get people to have that, that, oh, well, hey, you see where I'm coming from. I'm the victim in the situation, or, this person, they just didn't like me off of, no said reason. You gotta be careful, because it can really detriment your career, or it can be detrimental for any forward movement with your career field.
Yeah, and I think that had she had that conversation with Issa separately to the side, not went on podcasts and did all that extra stuff, they could have still had a work relationship. But it feels like Issa's a Capricorn, knowing her, they're done.
You're done. You're done. You're
It's a wrap on that. It's a wrap. She can't even trust. You can't trust you anymore because every time you have an issue with something, you're not going to even address me with it. Like, you're going to go to Shannon Sharp or whoever podcast and discuss it. Like, I ain't got time.
She said that was so Capricorn code because she said, they get on the podcast and talk to Ish like you.
And you know, and everybody knows what she's talking about. It
was. But the way she sounded was like the audacity, like
you really, mind you, we're in Hollywood right now, Black Hollywood, where we're barely getting our shows picked up right now. Yep. You know, writers and producers are having a hard time getting on the air. The only popular show right now in mainstream is Abbott Elementary. Yeah. To be honest, when it comes to like Black writers and cast, so it's like, you burning a few bridges that you don't really have. So you got to be smarter than that. Had she had not tried to like get messy with it and try to turn public opinion against Issa and all that, they may have been able to kind of salvage whatever friendship or whatever work relationship they had.
Or she could have been like able to work in other avenues with any direct connection with Issa Rae. But even at least you will have your name safe to move in different environments. Like you're playing the long game, you're playing chess. So it's like, you may not want to work with this person again. Maybe y'all didn't have that same vibe, but at least you had that's a mental check, and not everybody's in your business.
Exactly.
Everybody's in your business, and like, jeopardize your business.
Right. Like she threw Issa in the bus, and Issa's not even she's not problematic at all. So I definitely don't want to work with her. You know what I'm saying? Like that's gonna be in the back of their minds. You may not even be able to work with Tyler Perry. You know how Tyler is. So I don't know.
It's Black Hollywood and word spread. Some people are like, hey, you know what? Your reputation is a little bit questionable. And then when they see you say sort of things and you're coming from an angry place, that could be detrimental in itself because it's like, whoa, this person seems very, angry, and they saying things like, oh, well, I'm their elder, and it's like a little prideful thing going on. People are taking in everything you're saying on this internet.
Yeah, and it's intelligent, and she has to know that everything that she's saying is being taken into consideration. You know what I'm saying? Like you're purposely saying stuff like this. So, you know what I'm saying? It's not like you don't understand what you're putting out into the atmosphere. So you just got to be careful with that. Unfortunately, this is something that may follow her in her career going forward. Hopefully it doesn't affect her too much, but you got to be careful when you're dealing with people with that type of personality.
Right. Well, all right, y'all, we're about to close out. Like I said, I believe that, with understanding these navigational tools, you'll be able to combat a lot of things when it comes down to workplace envy, and also having proper communication with your staff members or colleagues. And let us know, how would you go about, talking to a coworker that doesn't quite get their boundaries with you in the workplace? They come to you, they have this anxious attachment. You like, I'm just trying to work, and they on your neck. Okay. How would you go about, having that direct communication with them to let them know we good, not invited to the cookout. You ain't
right. And how would you set that boundary? How do you set boundaries with people that you know are cool but only meant for work? Tell us how y'all, set your own boundaries like that.
All right, y'all, have a good one till next time.
All right, y'all.